The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Great to have you in on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Welcome to the Tuesday edition. 489-1240 to dial up. 800-825-5865. Toll free across the Hail Varsity Radio Network. Find us on the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe there. Get a hold of us on Twitter at HVarsity Radio, and can find Elijah and myself on Twitter at Herbal Essence, for Elijah at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt, and can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. We'll get our starting five shout-outs going. We'll dive into some thoughts from Coach Rule on Teddy Prochazka, and hear from Coach John Butler as well. Mitch Sherman with us in about 15 minutes or so from The Athletic. Mitch on camp as Nebraska gears up for an exciting 2024, but a little bit of that excitement dampened for sure with the news of Teddy Prochazka's ACL injury. We'll dive into that here pretty deep in a moment. In hour two, Michael Bruntz with Husker 24/7 Sports. Good to have Bruntsy with us tonight at 5. And then we'll sit down with Husker standout and Hall of Famer, 10-year vet for the Bills Mafia. And Pride of Auburn, Chris Kelsay, going to be with us. Both the Kelsay boys, Chad and Chris, the Pride of Auburn. But Chris going to sit down with us, and we'll get his outlook on 2024. Offense, defense, what he thinks, all that good stuff. You've got the numbers to get in, and let's get our starting five in a moment. But first, let's hear from Matt Rhule. Rhule's comments as he spoke ahead of when he was scheduled to speak this week, Saturday, to let the media and the Nebraska fan base know about a couple of injuries. Gladney, of course, you saw, unfortunately, that happened Saturday night. And then a non-contact deal with Teddy Prochazka yesterday, early in practice. Here's Coach Rhule.
Teddy yesterday, Prochazka, unfortunately tore his ACL as well. So not the same surgical knee, tore the other knee. So, obviously our heart breaks for both of them. But certainly Teddy, now this is, going on 4 surgeries for him. A really difficult time for him. So he was right there in the team meeting last night with an unbelievable attitude. He embodies everything we believe in. He embodies what's next. He'll be a great mentor for Roger, but unfortunate. So
completely unfortunate. We have the full clip of Matt Rhule. We'll get to more of that in a moment. But reaction, first and foremost, Elijah, you are sick for Teddy P. The work he's put in, the adversity he's already suffered in his football life, and he'll have to come back from it. Second knee, different knee, but we're talking 3 times in Teddy Prochazka's career that he's had to miss time. You go back to getting whacked against Michigan, where he hurt his knee there. There was a glimpse once upon a time with Prochazka and Corcoran on that left side. If you think back to the Northwestern game, how well that left side was dominant for a game and a half. You fast forward to Game 3 of the 2023 season, where he took his red shirt. He'll have a chance to petition and get a 6th season should he want to do that. You hope he wants to do that, but how many times can you get kicked in the junk as a football player and have season-ending injuries? A guy's at 6'11", 315, 320, incredible feet, great length, and somebody that is tasked with keeping your quarterback's blind side safe in a league full of fellas that come off the edge, make their living, and then go play on Sundays. If you just look at the old Big Ten West, you had a handful of top 10 defenses, top 15 defenses just in the West. You go over to the other side, now the whole Big Ten with what Ohio State and Michigan and Sparty and Penn State usually produce. This isn't good. This isn't good for anybody when you lose a guy that's projected as a starter. The other part of that is Nebraska's got a guy that has started 31 games in Turner Corcoran who can write his own redemption story after some injuries, some tough luck, some inconsistency. Coach Donnie and company have a real chance to build up that left tackle spot. They've been working on it. It's time for it to show. And if you're a Nebraska fan, knock on any wood around, okay, to pray there's no more injuries because you're thin from an experience standpoint once you get past Benhart, once you get past Turner.
And I want to quickly spend some time here on Teddy before I get to the other options. Teddy, like whenever he was playing at his level, which we could see, whenever he was healthy, whenever he was confident, he was starting caliber within the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And simply put, over the past 2 seasons, and you look at this upcoming season as well, 3 seasons where he probably was good enough to hold down that left tackle spot, be your starter all 3 years. He's going to play in a total of 14 games across those 3 seasons.
That's horrible. That's
horrible
tough
for the kid. It does feel like one of those cases that feels like it should be a cut and dry medical waiver. You'd hope, should he be physically able to, and should he be willing, that he would get another year should he come back, because that is just the most rotten luck you have ever heard. A guy that should be a 3-year starter, 36 games, playing in a total of 14 games. That's not right. That it's the reality of football. It's the reality of playing along the lines of scrimmage on a run-first team like Nebraska's trying to build, and within a run-first conference such as the Big Ten. The lines of scrimmage, it's rough and tumble up there. Injuries are going to happen. It's something we've talked about this offseason. It's something we've talked about with the offensive line. It's rare that you're going to have all 5 starters playing next to each other for all 12 games. And if there is any consolation to this injury from a fan and coaching perspective, it's that Nebraska has almost the entirety of fall camp to figure out what they're going to do with that left tackle spot. As we talked about yesterday, Turner Corcoran, he's never had a chance to fully settle into a position at Nebraska. He's been thrust from tackle to guard to tackle and back to guard, from left side to right side. That's been the story of his Husker career. He's moved all across the line. I was excited to see what he could be this season, knowing that he had a full offseason to focus on being a tackle. And now in fall camp, a full fall camp to be a tackle. If there was any doubt to that, I think that was taken away today. He is going to be a tackle within this offense, and I don't think there's going to be any possibility that he moves to guard no matter what happens at your guard positions. You have to have your left tackle locked down, especially with the high-level quarterback that you're bringing in Dylan Raiola. You need to have your left tackle spot locked down. Corcoran's going to be your guy there. The concern becomes what's behind Turner Corcoran with Gatula. Do you consider moving maybe Jacob Hood over there? You have Tyler. I'm always going to mess up the pronunciation.
Kanak.
Yeah, I think we've been pronouncing it wrong. That was the latest intel I got, that everyone's been pronouncing it wrong. It's more like Canuck or something.
Canuck, all right, sure.
Whatever. Regardless, who's going to be behind
Canuck?
Not a Canadian, no.
Yeah, no.
But regardless, I think the story becomes who's going to be behind Corcoran, because that's whenever things get really, really dicey, is if you should lose Corcoran at any point this season. What happens there? You can't be thin along the lines of scrimmage. I think Nebraska trusts their development, but you trust to thrust some of these young guys that haven't seen the field yet into that spot and potentially the Big Ten slate? That's going to be a question. I don't know what the answer is going to be, but you have 4 weeks to figure it out through fall camp, and you had an entire offseason to get guys ready. The story of the offensive line coming into this year was improved depth. You felt better about the pieces that you had that weren't 1 through 5, those guys that are 6 through 10 or 6 through 12 on your depth chart. What are those guys going to be? That's going to become the question now moving forward. But you never go into a season expecting that your top 5 guys are all going to remain healthy throughout the entire season along the lines of scrimmage. We'll see what type of plan in place Matt Rule has for those backup guys that are going to be thrust into a spot, because time has proven to us over the last 20 months or so that Rule always has a plan in place. So we'll see what his plan is here.
Well, and can you get a healthy season from Turner Corcoran? I know he wasn't available in spring. He was dinged a little bit from an ankle standpoint Saturday night. That's when Teddy came in. So Turner Corcoran was working with the ones. He's a former 4-star out of Lawrence that the world of offensive line wanted. That's Wisconsin, that's Minnesota, that's Iowa, that's K-State. I mean, there are programs that have historically good offensive lines that said, dude, you've got the ability to play at this level, And his first start was wonderful. COVID year 2020 at right tackle. Did a wonderful job. But then again, we play, musical chairs with position. You factor in some injuries. There's been some off seasons that Turner's not been able to be fully right and just work on his craft, let alone the hopping around the different spots from guard to tackle to tackle to guard. So now can he go out a right way, injury-free, confident, playing at a high level, because he's had his ups and downs. And it's not for lack of effort. It's just been a situation where you got to wonder about confidence. You got to wonder about strength. Not necessarily now from a strength part. He's been in the program long enough, but he's one of those guys that you're asking the question about, all right, you're thin from an experience standpoint. Well, Turner Corcoran's the poster child of throwing a kid in before he was ready. And it took a little bit longer to develop between injury and confidence. And that's okay. It's not his fault. That's reality. That's football. And right now, you've got Gatula that spent a year ago redshirting. They like what he's doing. Kanak is somebody that's working on that second team. Bricks is a young pup that they really like, his upside, but he's a true freshman. And then you look at Hood. He's had some dings, but it sounds like Hood's really reshaped his body. Now, there's so much upside and ceiling for Hood, but these are guys that, Elijah, it takes a while to cook. It takes a little while to bake these for them to come out right and ready to go. And the great ones don't come out firing as redshirt freshmen or true freshmen, quite frankly, at tackle. It's a money position. Let's just look at the Sanders recruitment, for God's sake. And you got to have a rare combination of length, great feet, toughness, physicality, and that agility. I mean, it's the number 2 most important position on offense behind your quarterback. I mean, it's your top 4 paid position in the NFL: quarterback, tackle, edge rusher, corner. That's your your Fantastic Four, so to speak, financially. So Nebraska at least has some experienced option at left tackle, but can you get what was supposed to be out of that this year? Now you're forced to.
Well, it's at what is arguably, if you're going to more of a passing attack, the most important position along your offensive line with the blind side, which I think is sometimes a little bit overplayed. But the dollars and cents that you see in contracts in the NFL are the proof in the pudding that if you're going to have a high-level quarterback, you got to protect him from the blind side. That's the place the quarterback can't see. That's the place they're going to get smoked. And some quarterbacks will say they'd rather get hit from the blind side because you don't see it coming. Your body stays nice and relaxed, and you don't pick up injuries that way. But regardless, the contracts in the NFL will tell you what the most important position is, especially whenever Nebraska looks to ratchet up their passing attack. It's the left tackle spot. There's been some comments in the stream. KG brings it up. Talking about Bricks, if he's going to be ready to step in. I don't think so. I said a couple weeks ago on our sister program, Hurrdat Sports Radio, that I think Bricks was probably among these offensive linemen the closest to college ready with his body because he had a lot of lower body mass. He put on enough mass to get up over 300 pounds before fall camp started. The one thing I'll caution people on there is Bricks is a guy that I don't think took any pass block reps in high school. No, because they just ran it and killed people 3 yards in a cloud of dust in his high school. I don't think you're going to be ready for college-level edge rushers after 1 month of fall camp. Maybe I'm wrong. If I am wrong, that would mean great things for Grant Bricks if he's able to pick it up that quickly. I wouldn't expect him to be a guy who's ready. Gatula has a year in the program. We'll see what kind of strides that he made through the offseason because he's going to be a guy that's probably second on your depth chart as it stands right now unless there's some position switches. The follow-up question to kind of all of this comes from Hokie. Are we hitting the panic button with Teddy getting hurt? I put the panic right now. It's ratcheted up from where it was yesterday, from probably a 1 on the offensive line to maybe a 3 or a 4. I think it goes from 1 to 4. It could even go 1 to 5. The real panic would set in if you lose another guy at that left tackle spot. Corcoran, as I said, I'm curious to see what he looks like with a full offseason, knowing you're going to be playing left tackle, getting your body ready for that spot. That's what it was this offseason for him. If you lose him, if you lose Gatula, if you lose any of those potential options at left tackle, things become a lot scarier. But as of right now, I think you're at a 4 or a 5. We saw what Raiola did with some pieces on the offensive line last year. You look at Letovsky, you look at Benhart, guys that made some strides. Prochazka took a step last year, I think. Can Corcoran follow in that same mold and take a step for himself? If he does, I think you feel good about the left tackle spot. It should be noted, Corcoran was the guy that was working with the ones on Saturday, which I think is positive. The fact that you didn't lose the guy that was currently working with the ones, but it's still a rough spot to be in.
Well, and Turner went down last year, and Teddy started the final 6 because Turner's got to stay healthy for a season as well. Mm-hmm. And you've had 2 guys miss a lot of time at that left tackle spot. Patrick is in first as we get into our starting 5 shout-outs. Red Flag Raiola, good to have you in. Red Flag. Justin third. Arlo comes in at 4. Mr. Erickson says, sucks to hear, but next man up. Brent is in at 5. The other Dave checks in along with Uncle Jimmy. The Sexy Grinch, formerly known as Crew, is here. Beautiful football weather outside, says part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, Jeff Snitley. Good to have you in, Mr. Snitley. Weston is here. Coach Brandon says, what's up? Anonymous says, if Turner goes down, ... KG here in the rear. Black Hills Brennan is out at Tomahawk Golf Club. Good on you, man. That's a gorgeous course. All right, podcast listener now in the stream from Charlotte. Christopher, good to have you. NASCAR Eric says, what's up? We'll have more shout-outs. Mitch Sherman coming up on Hail Varsity.
It's that time.
Psst. Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Mitch Sherman going to join us here in just a moment from The Athletic at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. I said we'd get more stream comments in, more shout-outs going on. Grateful Red is in. Love the name. Matthew, the real Matthew, checks in. Eat Beef says, I'm 177th, but I'll take it. Ryan says, hey, fellas, want to see you a month. I'll see you a month for the CU game. I'll bring some seasoning. Ryan, that'd be awesome, man. I'm out of seasoning. I've been on a steak bender, and it has been glorious. Elijah, how's the chicken and rice?
It's good. Don't forget about the kimchi.
Okay, yes, your Korean kick is money.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I will say, he said he's bringing the seasoning, but I think I might throw this out here now. Any Hail Varsity Radio listeners that make it down to the single barrel ahead of that Nebraska-Colorado game, dare I say, first red beer is on Elijah Herbel? Dude. That's dangerous.
It is very dangerous.
It's dangerous, but I'll do it. If we die, we die.
You found a credit card at the movie theater, didn't you?
No. Well, have I ever told you the story of whenever I found a whole bunch of credit cards here at the radio station? Like a whole stack of them, and like the police got called?
No, tell me this.
This was pre-COVID, probably 2019. Okay. When I was first starting out here. There's a desk over in the newsroom over yonder that they put me on, and I was one day kind of bored. I'd finished up some of my assignments, so I start looking through the drawers, and I find like this.
So you're snooping through the news department's drawers, and you found a whole bunch of credit cards.
Yeah, like 60 of them all rubber banded together from like random people. There was like spouses of people who worked here at the radio station. Some of them were still active, apparently. So we called the police, and the police took care of it. I never heard of anything else beyond that. But
all right. Well, I'm glad you didn't go on a spending spree. Mitch Sherman joins us in the stream at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. It's where you find him. You read him with The Athletic. Mitch, you caught halfway through, but Elijah's promising red beers before the Colorado game, and I asked him if he found a credit card, and he just said, yeah, I found a lot of them once upon a time, down the hall in our newsroom. So now you're caught up. To the football facts we go. Reaction to the Teddy Prochazka news. Is Mitch frozen?
No, I don't think Mitch has audio.
That's no good. Okay, do we have you now, Mitch? Mitch is texting us. He may just text us his answers.
He said he heard us until he welcomed us in. So let's remove from the studio.
Mitch looks thrilled that this is happening. So we'll try and get Mitch Sherman back on. It's been a glorious day of technical difficulty. Jeff is here. Jeff, thanks for making it happen. Tuck is here. Says another day closer to the destruction of the Buffs. Sal is here. and says, tough news on the offensive line. Let's try Mitch Sherman again. Nothing. Let's just try calling him and pray it works. Mitch, we're going to call you and say cheese, if that works. So we're going to try Mitch on the phone and go that route. Yeehaw. Brian is in. Teddy P's injury was a gut punch. Dylan's internal clock just sped up with Corcoran at LT, and Turner ain't him. Let us pray. That is Brian's comment in the stream. Good to have you commenting, Brian. Mitch, do we have you, partner?
I got you, if you can hear me.
We got you loud and clear. Let's go to Teddy Prochazka's news. There was some smoke around it yesterday. Reaction for Nebraska on the offensive line. What does that do to your outlook for the line without Teddy P?
Well, it's tough. We're going to have to reevaluate, recalibrate what I believe the thinking was about this group. My belief coming into camp was that Turner Corcoran could be a utility piece. He'd be able to play guard. He'd be able to be a swing tackle. Even if you got in a situation where there was an injury at center, I think because of his experience, Turner Corcoran is somebody that Nebraska could have asked to get ready really anywhere. But now without Teddy Prochazka, it's changed. I mean, it's almost like what Nebraska faced at quarterback early in the season last year, where you went in with one plan and then all of a sudden you played a couple of games and you just throw the cards up in the air and everything has to kind of you got to reshuffle the deck. So fortunately, this is not happening 2 weeks into the season. And instead, it's happening 3.5 weeks before the season starts. They've got to get Turner Corcoran back to the place where he's ready. And, I don't know that he's far away from that. He was with the ones on Saturday night when Nebraska was out having practice in front of the fans at Memorial Stadium. I also saw, and Matt Rule mentioned it today when he talked, that Turner turned an ankle in that practice. So you've got Gunnar Gatula potentially running with the ones right now today at left tackle. If you choose to keep everything else the same, Turner Corcoran's going to be back, and he's going to be back soon with Prochazka out. He's your day one left tackle as long as he stays healthy and everyone else stays healthy. But it's a different look for the line than what we envisioned just 2 days ago.
Yeah, and you mentioned the backup options behind Turner. That's one of the things we talked about in the first segment. It's rare to make it through a full Big Ten slate with all 5 of your same offensive linemen playing every single snap of every single game. That's just a reality of the Big Ten. It's rough and tumble along the lines of scrimmage. Injuries happen, and in the event that Turner isn't able to play all 12 games, do you think Gunnar is the next man up? You talked about potential movement. I know there's some high hopes for Grant Briggs, but it's a tough spot to throw a true freshman in. Say, hey, first season, you made it through fall camp. Get out there against UTEP or Colorado, buddy. But where do you think Nebraska goes behind Turner Corcoran should there be injuries, which is kind of an expectation within the Big Ten?
Well, yeah, Grant Briggs is probably at the tail end of a list where you're even talking about reasonable candidates. And the expectation for Grant Briggs has been that he will be a great offensive tackle for Nebraska, a bookend for multiple years, but not in his true freshman season, not coming from a small level of high school football in Iowa where his repetitions as a pass blocker were extremely limited. He has gained 25 pounds since he got on campus. Grant Briggs was listed at 285 as a signee, and now he's up to 310 after coming in and being in the weight program for a semester. So that's a glimmer of hope about him potentially being way ahead of the curve or a little bit ahead of the curve in his development. But I still don't in any way feel comfortable, and I don't think, it's whether Nebraska feels comfortable, not me, but I don't believe they feel comfortable with Grant Briggs in a spot like that until at least a year from now. So you're looking at Gunnar Gatula, who's got a year in the program and who's somebody that could have played more than 4 games last year, but they saw him as such a valuable piece coming down the line in years ahead, much like Jaden Doss who switched from offense to defense. And they kept Gunnar Gatula to 4 games. So you like him, I think, as your backup at right tackle. Maybe he now becomes the backup on both sides, and he's the swing tackle. He's the third guy. Somebody else they like is Tyler Kanak, and he was the transfer from Utah who sat last season as a redshirt. So he'd be, what I believe, a redshirt sophomore, and he was lined up at guard on Saturday night at practice, but they like him, I think, at all of those positions. And now, again, because of this injury, it may be a situation where he focuses entirely on the tackle spot. And then one other name I'll mention is Jacob Hood, who is the transfer from Georgia. Biggest offensive lineman in the room, 6'8", 350, and he just could not keep himself healthy in his time at Georgia, and then through most of his first year at Nebraska, just a chronic ankle situation. And, I think there were real questions about whether Jacob Hood would even be on the roster at this point in his career because of all of the injury issues that he had faced. Well, not only is he here, I think he's probably in the best physical condition, at least at the outset of camp, that as at any point in his 2+ years of college. So that's a like maybe a dark horse option, and not because of his talent. I mean, he's as talented as anybody out there. He was a highly rated signee coming to Georgia, but it's just the ability for him to stay healthy too is a real question mark. So I think they're going to look at all of those guys with Bricks as like the last possible option, and there may even be somebody ahead of Bricks. I haven't mentioned Grant Segrin, who is another redshirt, a walk-on that Nebraska liked in his first year on campus, and he's a guy who put on like 40+ pounds in 1 year, and would probably get a look before a first-year player.
Mitch Sherman's with us from The Athletic, Hail Varsity Radio, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. The Locked On Nebraska podcast, catch that as well with Mitch. Mitch, to give another thought here on the offensive line, let's go to Corcoran for a second. And as you evaluate his time in Lincoln, what do you think has been the roadblock? Injury, yes, but just I look at how early he played, man, and I kind of factor in some confidence, some injury, and then the musical chairs because he was at 100 different spots, it felt like. Do you think he can settle when called upon?
Well, I mean, he's primarily played left tackle. I mean, I think they've dabbled with him at other places, but he started 30 consecutive games, which is almost hard to believe when you consider how maligned he is. But he has not graded out well over much of that time. I mean, if you believe in the PFF stuff, which you take with a grain of salt, and I know the Nebraska coaches really try to downplay that, but I think even their gradings of the film in Turner Corcoran's time as a starter at Nebraska, there would be some downs. Yes, there were some ups. Early in his career in particular, he showed some real signs of being the kind of lineman that Nebraska thought it was getting out of Lawrence, Kansas, when Turner Corcoran was one of the highest rated players in the country, one of the highest rated offensive tackles in the country. He's a guy who Oklahoma wanted badly in that recruiting class. He picked Nebraska, and he chose to come to Nebraska, unfortunately for him, at a time where there was a lot of turmoil and change, and that kind of swallowed him up. The last couple of years, he's had stability with Donovan Raiola as the offensive line coach, now going into his third season, and that coincides with the time when Turner has had a difficult time staying healthy. So it's either been instability or injury that has set him on the path to find it difficult to have a successful run as a lineman at Nebraska. So maybe the stars are aligned here where he's healthy and he's got stability on the line and at the coaching spot, and you put him at one position and he has kind of like a Bryce Benhart awakening. A year ago, Benhart was equally as maligned, and I think as regarded by many observers as somebody who just wasn't going to figure it out. And then last year happened, and he was one of the bright spots offensively for Nebraska on the entire offense. And now here you are with him expected to be a draft pick a year from now with 41 starts under his belt.
Mitch, I'm going to keep you 2 minutes, and I'll get you out on the other side. Does that work?
Yeah, that works.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Mitch Sherman back with us. Some overtime with Mitch, The Athletic, where you read him. Great coverage as always with Nebraska and the world of college football. At Mitch Sherman on Twitter and the Locked On Nebraska pod. Catch him daily with that. Mitch, we hit the O-line pretty heavy today with the injury news. We also got a chance to hear from Coach Butler, and pretty fascinating open book NFL guy that Man, he's really excited to be in Lincoln, but he's still kind of pinching himself, it sounds like.
It's been a whirlwind, I think you could say,
Yeah.
for John Butler since around the 4th of July. That's the time that we got the news about Evan Cooper. And Nebraska had been vetting John Butler for a while at that point. This wasn't a 12-hour courtship that, as it appeared on social media. Tony White flew back from vacation. We heard earlier from the defensive coordinator in camp about that, and they started to talk to Butler. Matt Rule was right up the beach in New Jersey, and Rule and Butler connected and talked, and Butler said that it would be an understatement to say that it came out of the blue. He thought when he left the Bills that he had a window that extended maybe into March to find something for the 2024 football season, and if it didn't come through, then he was likely going to sit out. And as it got to July, that's not really something that he wanted to do, but jobs don't just open up until one at Nebraska did open up, and Butler had an admiration for Matt Rule. He knew some people around in Matt Rule's orbit, and they connected, and it's the way he portrayed it today, Butler in the interview, it was kind of a no-brainer. He's walked into this system with Tony White, who's an up-and-coming defensive coordinator. And, more than that, he's an elite top-level defensive coordinator. He was up and coming a year ago. Now he's at or near the top of college football. And he inherits a defensive backfield that's stacked with experience and players who are highly motivated, like Isaac Gifford, to turn around the Nebraska program after several years of struggles. And he's got kind of like an NFL setup with the coaching arrangement now that you can have an assistant secondary coach for the corners and an assistant secondary coach for the safeties. So, really he's just kind of traded in one very resource rich program in the NFL for another one in college.
Mitch, it feels like the biggest question with Butler as he steps in this year is going to be who starts at that cornerback spot opposite Tommy Hill. That feels like the biggest question. Saturday's open practice may have gained or given us a little bit of insight. Do you feel that competition's between Bly Hill whenever he makes it back, Jeremiah Charles, and Syer Wright? Is that the three that are competing for that spot? Any other names you want to throw in there?
I'm throwing in Marquise Buford.
Okay.
Buford was probably playing the spot that Tommy Hill plays because Tommy was taking a day off, at least from the teamwork drills for load management. Tommy wanted to be out there, according to Matt Rule, but look, much like the situation at left tackle now, you can't avoid to lose your top corner. And Tommy is physically ready to go. Like the season could start tomorrow and he'd be fine. So in camp, they're not going to push it with Tommy Hill. Like much like they do in spring practice with some of their top guys, there's just no reason. Like he's ready. They'll give him a day off here and there. I don't think they wanted to put him out there on the field turf, to be honest. He'll play the games that are on the field turf, but as we saw Saturday night, they had a knee injury in the secondary on the field turf. Then they had a knee injury on the grass on Monday, so it's not all about the surface. But anyway, we saw Marquise Buford playing corner. He has more experience at safety, but he played corner early in his career. I think it's a matter – I don't think Bly Hill's ready for week one coming off the spring injury. It's a matter of whether they're comfortable throwing out Jeremiah Charles. Syer Wright, I think he can get there, and he's got the talent to do it, but he's got to adjust, much like Stephon Thompson did, much like Micah Mazuka did in coming in from other programs on the defensive side. Mazuka's an offensive lineman, but Thompson on the defensive side in the winter. Syer Wright's got to go through that adjustment period now. Is he ready for week one? I don't know. So maybe I'd say Jeremiah Charles as the possibility as a redshirt freshman, or Marquise Buford. If they don't have Buford at safety, they've still got Deshaun Singleton, Isaac Gifford, and Malcolm Hartzog. So Marquise is one of your top 5 defensive backs. I think he's getting on the field somewhere, and it might just be at corner opposite Tommy Hill.
Mitch, you detailed all the work that Dylan Raiola put in away from Nebraska and the work he's put in at Nebraska. A little bit of a showcase without pads Saturday night. Your assessment of just what Dylan's shown his teammates from your vantage point Saturday and just being around the campfire, so to speak, with Raiola. And, I mean, yes, leadership, yes, talent, but it seems like things are falling into place from an adjustment and a comfort level.
Yeah, you don't hear anything to the contrary. You talk to defensive players, you talk to offensive players, assistant coaches on both sides of the ball. I mean, administrators on Saturday night. Nobody's disputing what appears to be the inevitable. I mean, even listening to Heinrich Harburg, I'm not saying that like he's conceding this competition. The competitor in him won't allow him to do that. But, read between the lines, check the body language. Like you see Dylan at the front of the line when the team comes out the doors. He's out with the number one offense, first reps of the practice. It's almost not even worth having the discussion at this point as to who the starting quarterback is going to be in week 1. It's going to be Dylan Raiola. He's the top guy. He was the top guy coming out of the spring, and I think he's extended his lead over the field in the rest of the offseason because of the way that he's earned the trust of the players around him, not just on the offensive side, but even on the defensive side. Talking to Isaac Gifford, one of the unquestioned leaders of this entire team, about Dylan Raiola at Big Ten Media Days, and it was clear that Raiola, as a true freshman before playing a game, has earned the respect of guys like Gifford. So that's essential. I mean, and that's almost unheard of for a true freshman in his position to be able to do. But that's where they're at. That's what their need is at the quarterback spot, and he's the right person at the right time to do it. So you saw it all over the field on Saturday. He came out, he led those guys down the field on the first drive, threw a fade route in the end zone to Jamal Banks. Banks took the true freshman Jeremiah Charles, who we just got done talking about, to school and caught the TD. So it's out there in front of us to see, and I think we all know who's going to be playing QB on August 31st.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Tiger Shark Diver wants to know about the copper mule mugs behind you at the Mitch Sherman Casa de Bar. How do you?
I'm sitting in the bar. I mean, I think we've gone through this drill before.
What I'm going to ask
of our
is
average Joe guys, where I can just like pull out a bottle of tequila or vodka or rum from underneath me. Trust me, I'm not drinking this on the job, but it's here. I'm sitting in my bar. There are Moscow Mule cups behind me. There, whatever's been stacked back there. They're not props for the StreamYard here.
My quick question, about 10 seconds. How would you rate your Moscow Mule making?
Oh, it's fine. I honestly, that's not my drink of choice. But if you're in a bar, and you have a bar in your home, you got to have the drinkware available.
I love it.
During the drama of fall camp, the drink of choice is whiskey neat.
Mitch, be good. Thanks for the time today, man.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
There he is, Mitch Sherman with The Athletic. Good to hear from him. We'll wind down hour 1 at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Elijah, you have opened up an incredible can of worms, welcome worms, with offering bribery and drinks for our friends in the stream before Nebraska, Colorado, down at the Single Barrel on one of those found credit cards you have in your wallet. DJ says he's going to bring us wings and going to try and max that card pregame. Our dear friend Ryan going to bring that incredible seasoning from Norfolk. Snitley's bringing the entire Boulder Peace Treaty clan, which is nice. And I know Vic in Denver he's always bringing gifts. He doesn't need to, but the last 2 times we bumped into him in Colorado, 19 and 2023, there was Templeton for us, even before the spring game.
Yeah.
So we just might have to have a drink swap meet. There's over 200 whiskeys to choose from with our friends at the Single Barrel.
Absolutely. It's one of the best places you can be pregame.
Yes.
I'll also add, if my credit card gets maxed out, it's a price I'm willing to pay, because at the end of the day, it's the listeners. It's everyone that chimes in on the stream. It's everyone that listens on the radio. Maybe you're driving home in your car right now listening. Maybe you're catching us in podcast form. You're out walking the dogs. You're like, man, I need my Husker fix for the day. If you listen to this show on a consistent basis, you're the person that makes this job possible. You're the person that allows us to do this. You pay our bills. Every once in a while, we need to pay that favor back. So I'm willing to buy the first round. Not the second round, but the first round in Boulder. Whether it's a red beer, whether it's a whiskey, maybe it's an old-fashioned whiskey sour, whatever you want.
Well, Grateful Red chimes in with the Mississippi Mule. And that's one Mississippi, three Mississippi, pour the vodka. 4 parts vodka, 1 part blackout. I like it. Let's hear from John Butler. Can we sneak in his thoughts on the Tony White defense? Believe that is cut 5? Yeah, cut 4. Cut 4.
In the 30 years that I've coached in like a traditional 4-3. I've coached in a 3-4, in Houston, and like basically the Patriots style defense. And then for the last 6 years, I coached in really a nickel 4-2-5. That's they're the 3 main ones. And then you get this one that's so unique. The thing that I love about it is just the versatility and the flexibility that it provides you as a defensive coach to come up with solutions and answers. And then obviously as a DB coach, you got 5 DBs out there. So selfishly, you're developing, almost half of the defense is in your room, And obviously, the more DBs you play, the more flexibility there is with coverage principles and, things you can do that way. So it's been great. I think one of the key things in life, especially as an older guy, I used to be one of the young coaches, now I'm one of the older ones, is like, something new is something that inspires you, something that motivates you a little bit to learn and to really develop. And so when I came here, it was all about just, I'm going to learn this defense and keep my mouth shut and really try to figure out what's going on, how the pieces of the puzzle work. And then when time comes, based on things I've done in the past, I can interject with Tony in our conversations about how maybe I can help it. But right now, it's really about me learning it, teaching it, refining it, and that's really it.
Good stuff from Coach Butler. Ryan, yes, I do owe you one. Justin, 9th and P inside the Graduate Hotels where the Single Barrel's at. Michael Bruntz, Chris Kelsay, next hour.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you, it's Hour 2 at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Can find the show, some of your favorite podcast platform downloads, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Watch the show live or rewind it with Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Michael Bruntz with us here on Hail Varsity. Senior writer, of course, does all things with the Big Red, with football, basketball, recruiting, and baseball. Husker 24/7. You love him. And, of course, Shafe and BC at Michael Bruntz. Give him a follow if you don't already. Bruntsy, how's your Tuesday, man? Thanks for giving us a couple minutes.
Not bad. I'm the temperature difference. Sorry to start talking about the weather. That's like an old man thing here, but my God, it's like a hooded sweatshirt on today after it was like 110 yesterday.
You are not kidding, man. I'm wearing a long sleeve under a golf shirt. I look like well, I don't know what I look like other than just desperate, but I was shivering because I'm a wuss. But you're not wrong, man. It felt fall-esque. It felt a bit chilly. Meanwhile, the folks out there sweating their in 115 humidity yesterday, like, shut up, dude. It feels amazing.
Yeah, no, it's great today. I mean, we had to put out like the hoodie and shorts signal. That's like that's like its own season.
That's Matt Rule's favorite season, I'm pretty sure. I mean, you look at this weekend, highs in the upper 70s. Like, I can't believe it. For mid-August?
Screams golf course. And it's a very horrible tease before it gets brutally hot and disgusting again, much like the tease of an intact, experienced offensive line heading into a breakthrough second season. Now, the breakthrough second season can still happen, Bruntz, but tough news on Teddy Prochazka. Brother, you've covered recruiting a while, and we all saw what he was coming out of Elkhorn South, and it just didn't fair. It just didn't fair to a good dude and a talented guy to keep having these season-ending issues.
Yeah, that was a really professional segue there, by the way. I think, yeah, you feel bad. I mean, you were there last week. I mean, he's meeting with the media and
talking pizza.
About, yeah, I mean, was had made it through an off season fully healthy, which for him, I mean, that's a major accomplishment and something that had not happened with any kind of frequency since he's been in Nebraska. And then to have that happen, I mean, you feel for the guy. I mean, he had, has torn both ACLs now. He had the shoulder issue. He's gone through a lot just from a mental health, confidence standpoint and coming back from those injuries. And you just feel terrible for him. And, of course, once you get past those feelings, then the question is, well, who the heck is going to take his place? And that's where the question gets a little bit more nuanced with Turner Corcoran at that left tackle spot, probably Gunnar Gatula, and behind those two, that's where it gets a little shaky. So not the position where you want to see somebody go down. I mean, you don't want to see anybody get hurt, anyways, but especially there where that's a really key spot, especially when you're talking about potentially starting a true freshman quarterback.
Michael, where does Nebraska go behind Corcoran? It's the same question we asked to Mitch Sherman, but you start to worry on the Big Ten whenever you talk about how rough and tumble the lines of scrimmage are. Guys are always going down on the lines of scrimmage, maybe for a quarter, maybe for a game, maybe for a couple weeks. That's just the way it goes. Does Nebraska, I mean, Matt Rule said today he feels good about the options they have there, but do you feel good about the options Nebraska has at left tackle behind Corcoran?
You don't know until the lights come on, right? Gunnar Gatula, redshirted last year. He was consistently on the two deep for most of the year, and I think they like what he can be long term. I mean, whomever it's going to be there is going to be somebody that's kind of being counted on for the first time, and you just never know. So Matt Rule sounded confident today about who they have there and what they can do going forward. They've been bullish on the line and where it's at now in year 3 under Donovan Raiola, but you just never know. And I've seen some people say, well, you move guys around. I mean, maybe Tyler Knack goes back to offensive tackle, but I mean, even then, that's somebody that's still relatively new to the rotation. So, I guess the one maybe saving grace in all of this is you still have most of fall camp to get guys up to speed, get a ton of reps, and kind of see what you have. Versus if this was UTEP week or something like that, where you don't have as much time to kind of get somebody ready. So. There's going to be an opportunity there for somebody to step in there for the first time, and we'll, I guess, kind of see how they fare.
Michael Bruntz with us from Husker 24/7 Sports. At Michael Bruntz, we're talking Teddy Prochazka, his season-ending injury, the ACL non-contact yesterday. Bruntsy, can you work around questionable left tackle play? You can put a tight end over there. You can chip with a back. Is Nebraska, with what they want to do on offense, will they be able to, with a young quarterback, survive it?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a choice. I think you probably have to get a little bit creative. Whether, like you said, whether that's leaning on your backs to pass block a little bit more. If you do things with your tight ends to kind of help out there. I mean, you're probably going to have to do a little bit of that anyways. But yeah, I mean, I think, I think that's again where, the fact that you do have a little bit of time to even game plan around this, you can do that. But yeah, I mean, whomever steps in there, you're going to have to get a little bit creative. And, even even Turner Corcoran, I mean, he only played a couple games last year, and he's still kind of trying to get his feet under him and coming back from basically missing the off season. So, I mean, I think that's where you lean on some of those tight ends that, you talked about their ability to block. And, the one thing that probably helps Nebraska there too, I mean, you look at their running back room, you've got a sixth-year guy in Ramir Johnson. Emmett Johnson is going into, or Ramir Johnson, Emmett Johnson, you have a guy going into his third year. Gabe Irvin's going into his, fourth year in the program. So that gives you a little bit of hope there too, that, if you have to ask those guys to stay back and pass block and handle blitzes and different looks, you at least have guys who have been through it and kind of understand what that takes at the college level to be effective as a pass blocker.
Michael Bruntz with us from Husker 24/7 Sports. Bruntsy, we saw the Ben Hart emergence a year ago, got better, played confidently, kept working with Coach Donnie. Is it fair to expect the same thing from Turner a year later on that left side?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see where he's at. I mean, I think that's kind of the hope, though, is you're in the third year with the same offensive line coach. Second year of an offense that the terminology is largely the same, and guys should be comfortable in it. And you're considering yourself a developmental program. There's part of me that says let's throw some of those young guys in there if you have to, meaning Gatula, just kind of see how he fares. I mean, it's a tough ask, but at the same time, I mean, the only way that you're really going.
And there's our phone line.
Yeah, Bruntsy, it was going to be an incredible finished thought. We will reconnect with you, even though you can't hear us. So we will reconnect with Michael Bruntz, Husker 24/7 Sports, at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. I hope he is not offended. It wasn't personal. It is just you got to put another quarter in, Elijah. We got to keep feeding this thing quarters, apparently. That is the hope. Chris Kelsay with us here in a little bit. So Michael Bruntz with us. We have him reconnected. Bruntsy, what you just finished saying was absolutely incredible.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I think I think you just got to kind of throw them in and see. I mean, if you're gonna be a developmental program, see where guys are at, and you hope that you've developed those young guys enough to be able to go in when they have to. I mean, you got to put somebody there. So
somebody's got to pitch.
Somebody's got to be there. So I mean, you've got a veteran you can try, and there's guys that they feel good about in the program too, I think.
It's Michael Bruntz with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, talking Nebraska's offensive line situation. Michael, crazy thought here. Do you just try to convince David Sanders Jr., move that timeline up, reclassify, get him in for fall camp? Hey, that spot's yours.
That would be a heck of a pitch. I don't foresee that happening, but I mean, that conversation has been. I mean, it I think highlights. Nebraska does have good depth. I think they've recruited well along the offensive line. I think it also just kind of shows you that tackle is a tough spot sometimes to recruit, and certainly a very competitive spot when you're trying to add guys out of the transfer portal that can help you there. I mean, it's a premium position for a reason, and Nebraska, has tried to add guys. They've also tried to bring guys along and develop them. So we're going to see how good of a job they've done with that.
Michael Bruntz, have you ever been to a seaside beach region in New Jersey?
Not in New Jersey. I have not done the Jersey Shore.
Okay. I ask because Sea Isle City, New Jersey is where John Butler was kicking it. I don't know if Snooki was there or JWoww.
That sounds like a place a mob would dump a body. Well, take it out to the beach, weigh it down.
With our friends' construction history, it's just easier to use cement. Don't you agree?
I feel like you could find really good Italian food there. Like you could you wouldn't have to go far.
Sea Isle City, New Jersey. Anywho, Butler was done wearing the sunblock, got a meeting, took a phone call, and away they went. And here comes Nebraska's new secondary coach. What'd you think today?
Yeah, no, I was impressed. Definitely a guy that talks like a seasoned college assistant and pro assistant. I mean, I think he just kind of looked resume-wise. I mean, we kind of went over this whenever they hired him. I mean, given the short time frame, his resume, and the fact that he's been a coordinator, he obviously had success in Buffalo as a position coach. I mean, I think Nebraska was pretty fortunate to get him on the time frame that they were on. So, I'm eager to kind of see how things shake out in that group. I think sometimes when you have a new set of eyes on guys, and whether a guy's a safety or a corner or both, or how are you going to use them, that's always kind of interesting to me. I think there's some jobs still to be won and some snaps to be won in that secondary. So, I think he's going to be a valuable resource in that defensive group, and I hope people can appreciate just the type of time frame he's on, where he's essentially learning an entire new defense in about a month and has to turn around and teach and coach that. It's not. I would imagine that's probably not easy to do.
Michael, one of the things that Butler made abundantly clear today is that he was much happier coaching football than on the beach. Do you believe him?
Yeah, I do. Coaches are wired differently than a lot of people. I mean, I think it's probably one of those things. I think he kind of hit on this, but you're fine probably with the idea of maybe sitting out a year when it's like May and you don't have kind of the natural calendar. But when you start getting to like July and it's almost time for training camp and fall camp and things like that, I mean, I think guys are kind of just wired to just, get back to work. So I believe him that he probably was more willing to get back to work. But I mean, I would probably sat out a year. I would sit on the beach, eat Italian food, and just watch football for a year. But I think coaches are just kind of wired a little bit different than a lot of us.
Michael Bruntz with us, Husker 24/7. Follow and read him there at Michael Bruntz on Twitter. 30 seconds, Bruntsy. You can go win a gold in any event in the Olympics. What event do you pick?
Oh man. I was watching a banger of a table tennis match the other day. I think that's probably a little bit more where my skill set lies. That's one of the few events in the Summer Olympics that the Americans have not medaled in.
Well, Forrest retired years ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like badminton. I think table tennis is one of them. I think there's the trampoline, the one where they just kind of bounce like crazy. That was another one. So I would try to be the first medalist in table tennis. That's where I would go. No
break dancing.
No, I mean, you don't want me anywhere near that competition.
You had the pants, didn't you?
The hammer pants?
The parachute hammer deal?
Yeah. No. Are Zubas? Can you wear Zubas in the Olympic breakdancing? Is that allowed? That feels like that era, right?
You're Michael Bruntz. You can do whatever the hell you want.
I think he should go medal in table tennis, then go run across the country a couple times.
Yeah. Orange and blue Bronco Zubas. You and John Elway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like it. I think that's my approach.
Bruntsy, you be good. We'll talk and see you soon. Thanks again, man.
Anytime, guys. Thanks.
There he is, Michael Bruntz with us from Husker 24/7. At Michael Bruntz on Twitter. Chris Kelsay going to be with us next on Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, black shirt at Husker Hall of Famer. Chris Kelsay with us, and part of that Bills Mafia for a decade plus. And Chris, good to spend a few minutes with you. How we doing?
We're doing great. Appreciate you guys inviting me on the show.
Man, it's good to talk, and I'm interested to get your optimism meter going into this 24 season. and also just kind of dive in to just how you're feeling about the Big Red. So let's start off, and I want to ask you an NFL question, and it's centered around Keon Coleman. He's the wideout from Florida State that got drafted by Buffalo, and of course they had some of the rookies out. Well, Josh Allen had him over for dinner. He served fish, and Coleman said, I'm not down. I don't like the fish. What are you feeding me? Ever have a situation where you had to kind of gulp down some food that a vet was giving you?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not a very picky eater. I think growing up in my household with me and my brother and my little sister and obviously mom and dad, we ate as fast as we could the first helping, hoping that we could get a second helping. So we weren't very picky. I grew up, meat and potatoes, but we also did a lot of fishing, and so we always had fresh meat on the table of all sorts. So there's not a whole lot of food that I'll pass by.
This takes us back to a conversation we had last week on the show. The best way to cook a freshly caught fish is what?
Oh man, there's numerous ways. Blackened. Obviously, if you're not concerned about a healthy meal, fried is always the way to go. I mean, that's the best way to eat fish. But, there's broiled. There's all sorts of different ways to cook it, steamed. But, I don't think you can ever go wrong with a piece of fried fish.
Okay, that's where I was going. My grandpa was beer batter extraordinaire. They were crappie.
Yep.
The walleye is phenomenal, but I'm not much of a walleye fisherman, but I am a walleye fish eater. Do you have a preference before we get into some football? We just needed to ask you about the rookie feeding and the Bills, but are you going with crappie or walleye, or do you have an other choice?
No, it's definitely walleye. I tell you what, my dad's biggest passion was fishing, and until we got old enough to where our athletic careers kind of consumed our time, we did a lot of camping and fishing. My brother and I and my dad, and his love for fishing was centered around walleye fishing. So we always had fish in the freezer, and typically it was walleye, and he fried it, he broiled it, he steamed it, he fixed it any way he could, and we liked it all. So I definitely have to go with walleye. Most
you caught in a sitting with Papa?
Oh my gosh, there's times, and you gotta understand. I've been fishing with my dad since I was old enough to walk, probably even before that. So I'm sure that there's days down at one of the reservoirs in Kansas. We used to fish Harlan County, Glen Elder, Lovewell. We'd go up to Lake Oahe in South Dakota, and there'd be days that we'd hammer them. So I can't give you a number. All I'll say is it was always under or at the limit.
That's right, in case any game wardens listen.
Exactly, I love it.
Chris Kelsay's with us at Varsity Radio, black shirt Husker, and longtime member of the Buffalo Bills. So, Chris, let's talk Nebraska, former teammate of yours, Dom Raiola, and we look at Dylan, and looks the part right now. Let's start with the offense, despite the Teddy news today. Are you optimistic that this team does take a step forward on offense?
I'm very optimistic. I'm hearing things just like everybody else is. I think it was Joel Makovicka who made a comment of regarding Dylan about never seeing a quarterback come into a program as polished as he is. And obviously there's, you kind of got to attribute that to Dom's success in the NFL, and as long as he played as Detroit center. So obviously the pedigree is there. I did make it to a practice or two this spring, and obviously the buzz and just everything involved down there is pretty electric. I'm always optimistic this time of year. That's just my nature, but something feels different this year. I'm a huge fan of Coach Rule and his staff. I think they're really doing it the right way, and I'm excited to see the product that they put on the field. But as a defensive guy, I watched primarily the defensive side of the ball, and even went over to Terrence Knighton's defensive line group and watch some of the drills they were doing. I'm coaching high school football now, so trying to pick up a few pointers from those guys. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm in the same boat as everybody right now around Nebraska, and those who are cheering for the Huskers. They're excited, and I think there's reason to be. So hopefully we're competitive in every game, and we win some of those close ones that we dropped last year.
It's Chris Kelsay with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Chris, as you talk about watching that defensive line, watching Coach Knighton go to work this past spring, obviously a lot of talent back for that Nebraska defensive line. You got Prince Will, Cam Linhart, Ty Robinson. You got Nash Hutmacher, Jamari Butler. A lot of talent back, familiar names that really played well last season. I want to get your thoughts in terms of the overall success of a team. How important is the defensive line in that equation? Because I know you're probably a little bit biased in that regard. I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I am, but I think it rings true. I think games are won and lost up front, both sides of the ball, with the guys in the trenches. I mean, it's been that way since football was created, and I don't think it's any different today. Obviously, the game's changed a lot with as much, throwing the ball around the field as there is anymore, but it begins and ends right there. If you can't get pressure on the quarterback or stop the run and make a team one-dimensional or as one-dimensional as you possibly can, it really puts a lot of stress on your secondary and your linebackers, trying to cover guys down the field and all around. So it's hand in hand. You got to have good coverage. You got to have good disguises. You got to have good schemes to where, offenses can't just line up and know exactly what they're going to get every time. And that's why I love Tony White and his defense so well is you're able to do so many things out of it. I don't think they've scratched the surface of what that defense is capable of. So I'm super excited to see how they've progressed even from last year when they didn't necessarily had all their dues that they wanted to and in the positions that they wanted to. But, again, we got to be able to stop the run up front and try to make them throw the ball as much as possible. And then once they do, we got to be able to get pressure on the quarterback, sacks, turnovers, and the whole nine. So it works hand in hand as far as, up front and in the secondary.
Chris Kelsay's with us, Husker standout, Husker Hall of Famer, 10-year vet with the Buffalo Bills, Hail Varsity Radio. Some thoughts on Nebraska 2024. And, Chris, you're a part of that fraternity of guys who played exceptionally well at Nebraska as a rush end. And there's a long, long line of you. And you fast forward to this year. Let's talk Ty Robinson coming back for one more giddy-up. Nash has changed his body. And then the young pups all got time and produced. So do you think this year's line, the young guys and the old guys, go out the right way? And what I mean by that is they raise it a level from what was really pretty good even a year ago.
Yeah, what I think is most exciting is to your point of how many guys they have, how many weapons they have, because in today's game, and I'd say even, back when I was playing, you're able to rotate a lot of guys through. I mean, there's times the entire defensive line would rotate out, would sub out, and keeping guys fresh throughout the game. So when you get in those tight games, late in the fourth quarter, and you need a pass rush and you need somebody to make a play, they're fresh and they're not just worn out and kind of thrown out to the wolves, so to speak. But I'm excited to see them work together, how they use that rotation, how they use some of these guys, like you said, Ty and Polar Bear and some of these younger kids. So, again, optimism galore, but at the end of the day, we got to see how it translates to the field.
Chris, what's the optimum number? What's a fair snap count for the starters? What's the second line, third line, fourth line, right under Tony White? What's a supplement number? What's going to get the best out of a Ty and a Nash and a Lenhart and a Jamari? 40 snaps, 50. What's fair for a D lineman?
It's been a long time since I played college ball, but I always know that my first couple of years with Buffalo, we were the number 1, number 2 rated defense in the league, respectively, and I know if you could keep it under or around 50 snaps, that was really good. And then there's other times, other years where I was on, pretty poor defenses, and there'd be games that were over 90 snaps, defensive snaps. That makes it awfully hard. In college, I think it's, especially the way the game's kind of transitioning towards the NFL style of football, I would believe it'd be pretty similar to that. You know, if you can keep your defense under 50 snaps a game, I think you're keeping guys pretty fresh and pretty healthy across the board, and just allowing them to rotate when needed. If the offense is able to establish a long drive, then you can substitute fresh bodies in. But you know, I remember games, especially early in the seasons, where we're going 3 and out every defensive possession. And it's awfully easy to stay fresh when things are rolling like that. But, you know, I'm not saying that we have to go 3 and out every play, but if we can limit those defensive snaps and keep guys fresh, whether it's with a rotation or 3 and outs, I think we'll be in good shape.
Chris, great thought there. That's where I was going to go, is getting off the field on third down. That was an issue for Nebraska last year. I want you to put your defensive coordinator shoes on, your headset, if you will. If it's third, let's say 7 yards to go, you're going to dial up a blitz to get that offense off the field. What is your favorite blitz? What blitz are you dialing up on that 3rd and 7?
It kind of depends on what the offense likes to do, obviously, but I want something that gets you a free runner at the quarterback. So even if they get the ball off, they got to get it off right now. And obviously you kind of know what they want to do to you going into games, and as the game progresses, you know, the wrinkles that they thrown at you that you weren't expecting or weren't prepared for. But with Tony White and his staff, you know, they're very good sideline adjustment guys. And I'd venture to guess you do the same thing. That's the purpose of a blitz, right? Is to make them make a decision right now. So regardless if it's coming from outside, regardless if it's coming from inside, if it's multiples, it's got to be a free runner that makes the quarterback make a decision right now that he's not ready to make. You know, early throw, a guy's not out of his break yet, trying to hit a hot route that's, you know, not ready for it, but it's got to be something that happens right now. People think all the time to get off the field on third down, you got to get sacks, which sacks are great. You don't. You just got to make the quarterback make a decision that he doesn't want to make or is not ready to make.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? We're not pointing you yet.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Chris Kelsay's with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio, black shirt Husker, and longtime member of the Buffalo Bills. Chris, John Butler, we got a chance to meet him today. Great NFL pedigree, solid to really spectacular numbers in the NFL in Buffalo. I know you still have some mates up that direction. As good as advertised? I mean, what's the word from a former Bill, from some other Bills up that direction?
You know, believe it or not, there isn't a single Bill on that roster that I played with. I know a lot of the people that are around the organization, and I think that there's still some excitement, quite a bit of excitement, and a lot of optimism on their end as well, despite some of the major changes that were made early in the offseason. You know, they had to let Stephon Diggs go. They had to let Gabe Davis go due to salary cap issues. But I really like the Coleman pick, their first-round draft pick. I really like, you know, the duo at tight end with Dalton Kincaid and Knox. I think that they're a really good tandem there. Their offensive line's pretty solidified, and you know, they got Cook at a running back, and I think they got some other weapons. They brought in the Samuels from the Commanders, so losing 2 really good receivers, but I think drafting a really good one, and then adding some pieces around him with a veteran, and see how some of these other young guys on the roster step up. But the one thing I do know is as long as you have Josh Allen under center, you got a chance. That kid is special, and he's fun to watch, and I know that they're going to rally around him and use him in ways that you know, pose a lot of problems to opposing defenses.
Chris, the Mahomes and Josh Allen battles we've seen over the past couple of years in the postseason have been somewhat reminiscent to me of like the Colts and the Patriots through the mid-2000s with Manning and Brady, and you never know if Manning was going to be able to get over that hump and beat Tom Brady. Is this the year that Josh Allen finally takes down Mahomes in the playoffs? Do you think it's possible?
I think it's definitely possible. I took my son down to the game in Kansas City here a couple of years ago where Kansas City ended up coming back with 12 seconds left to beat them. And I tell you what, we went from high-fiving and hugging and hooting and hollering to just absolutely devastated and a really quiet ride home that game. But I think that, they're chomping at the bit. They know that the AFC is going to come through Kansas City until proven otherwise. And I think there's a lot of good teams out there, especially in the AFC. I think there's a ton of good quarterbacks in the AFC. So it's going to be really difficult. It always is. It's never easy. But if there's a team that can do it, I think it's the Buffalo Bills. Chris
Kelsay with us, Hail Varsity Radio, former Bill, Husker Hall of Famer. John Butler, Chris, comes from Buffalo into Nebraska's secondary. Do you think that back end is as strong or what they've been? Do they improve? Do they miss a beat with that transition?
No, I don't think they miss a beat. I don't know what happened. I don't know, any of the details surrounding, the need to bring him into town. But I know for a fact that as fast as it happened, I shouldn't say as a fact because I don't know as a fact. I'm guessing and thinking out loud here. But as fast as that happened, I think Coach Rule has a succession plan in place for all his coaches. I just think that's the way good business is done as a coach, and he would not have asked him to join the staff if he wasn't 100% confident that he could fit right into Tony White's scheme and coach these kids up in a manner that they can perform on Saturdays. So I'm not worried about it. I think he's going to fit right in. He was already, fitting right in, and I'm excited to see how those guys play in the back end. So, like I said, I'm not worried one bit, especially as quickly as that whole process took place.
Chris, we'll see you for a red beer at some point, and we'll get you back on again. I always appreciate you giving us a few minutes here.
Hey, anytime, Chris. And, hey, it was good seeing you in Denver the other day, too.
Kelsay sitting there, well-rested, business trip, and, the travel back from Big Ten Media Days, travel hell. I was like, hey, there's Kelsay. I'll say hi. It's good to see you, man. We'll talk again, and I always appreciate your thoughts.
Anytime, guys.
Good to spend time with Chris Kelsay, part of Bill's Mafia. Good insight there.
Yeah, and you had me wondering at the end there, like, why was Schmidt taking a sneaky weekend trip to Denver? What are you seeing Chris about in Denver? And now it all makes sense. That was just Big Ten Media Days.
Yeah.
I was like, there's closer options
Chicago
now.
to Denver, Denver to Lincoln.
I was like, it's big news.
Denver to Omaha.
It was big news whenever they opened those dispensaries right across the border in Missouri. I'm like, I don't think you need to go all the way to Denver anymore.
I was not going to Denver by choice.
Most people don't anymore, unless it's for a Nuggets game or a Broncos game, or sometimes an Avs game.
Something like that. Let's squeeze in a couple more thoughts from Coach Butler here, but landing the Nebraska job, cut one from Coach Butler earlier today.
Life changes quickly. It's the truth. And you can do one of two things. You can say yes or you can say no. You can choose to go with the opportunity that you have, or you can choose to stick with what you're doing. And to say that this was out of the blue would be probably an understatement from a standpoint of the timing, where my mindset was. But when the opportunity came, and it came quick, I've had relationships with some people in this building, and obviously was very impressed with the programs that Matt has built through the years. I was just speaking with the radio reporter, and, I had a relationship with two of his better players when I was with the Bills, Tyler Matakevich and Deion Dawkins. And honestly, a lot of our conversations when we were there was the success they had, at Temple. And then Terrell Bernard played for Matt at Baylor. Like, I was always curious about, how he ran that program, and everything that came from those guys was positive, and culture building and toughness and team and, all the things that I believe in. So I think that was kind of maybe a little bit of a foundation of knowledge that I had going in. But when it happened, it really just came down to I had been kind of, investigating the landscape for 5 months and have had a lot of time to decompress and kind of think about where I was, and it was really kind of came down to the perfect timing and the perfect place. Timing was right, an opportunity to come coach at Nebraska at a storied program with great players and great coaches and great fans. It just ended up being right, and sometimes things are too good to be true.
John Butler, Nebraska's new secondary coach, his first catch up with the media, and he was asked, what are good characteristics of a good ball hawking secondary?
Yeah, first of all, you got to create a mindset. Like, when you're a coach, you're teaching about their stance and their alignment, their keys, their responsibilities. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. But you also try to pare it down, like you believe in playing hard, playing tough, and attacking the football. And so you're constantly reemphasizing that in everything that you do so that it just becomes a habit and it becomes something that's second nature for the players. And it never ends. It's a constant, like, hey, you're watching a film of a guy and you're like, hey, your technique there could be get better, but look at your finish. Did you punch at the ball? Did you scoop at the ball? Did you get your eyes to the football? So, the objective of defensive football is to either score on defense yourself or get the ball back to the offense as quickly as you possibly can. Well, how do you do that? You take the ball away. So it's just to us, it's a mindset, it's a mentality. It's recruiting players that have done that before. So, and it's something I believe that you could be a middle of the pack defense, and if you attack the football and you take it away, you can put yourself in position to win a lot of games.
John Butler, and we'll wind down a Tuesday with Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Let's remind you to buckle up, hands on the wheel, eyes and focus straight ahead. The driver has one job: to drive. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Get the podcast downloaded. Like and subscribe and give us some feedback. Give us a review. Totally appreciate the good, bad, or ugly. Hail Varsity YouTube can watch the show that way. Great stuff from Husker and Bill, Chris Kelsay this hour, and Michael Bruntz also in hour 2. Appreciate Mitch Sherman with us in hour 1 tomorrow. Mike Babcock, Mr. Husker Football, good to join us. We'll run down Evan Bland. Maybe a Lars Anderson sighting. What do you think of that?
It's been a while since we've talked with Lars.
Good old Lars. He's been banging away on a book, killer book.
How many is that now for him? He's like, does he have more?
He's pushing 20.
I said, does he have more books than Nebraska had points per game last season? It's gotta be
easily.
Close.
Yes, yes.
Close.
And that's not a knock on Lars. It's just, yeah. He's nearing or surpassing Jack and Tiger when it comes to majors.
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head.
I think 16 and 15 or 14.
Wow.
So,
prolific.
Impressive. Speaking of golf, Indian Creek, come find us. Get yourself out to the Pinnacle Bank Championships.
Oh, it's going to be beautiful.
Awesome. Awesome weather, awesome time, awesome setup. Be there Thursday and Friday for the first couple of rounds. Stay for the weekend. Hail Varsity Roadshow Thursday and Friday 4 to 6 up at Indian Creek. We'll maybe even be on a boat Friday.
That is the plan as it currently stands.
The old boat show.
The boat show. And it's going to be a real double feature for me of golf on Friday. I got the tee time booked for Friday morning. Going to go sneak in 18, then make it up to Indian Creek, the Pinnacle Bank Championship from the boat. That is a hell of a day.
That's good.
And what's nice is this has already screwed me once this summer. But
you're going to wear your Prestige Worldwide t-shirt?
No, I was going to say with the weather we have in store, high 70s for the high on Friday.
Elijah's going to be going with a turtleneck.
Looks like overcast. I might get a stay away from the sunscreen for a day, which is rare.
That's overrated.
The overcast days already screwed me once. I was at the College World Series on a somewhat overcast day. I'm like, I don't need sunscreen. Instead, I was a lobster for the next 6 days.
Just let it burn India. It'll be okay.
That's not what my dermatologist says.
I haven't seen mine in 15 years.
Might want to.
What are you saying?
With advice like that, I'll just let it burn India. Yeah, your dermatologist is going to be excited to see you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe
here's your bill.
Yeah.
Hand over your deed to your home. Do it now.
Thanks for taking care of my 401k, Chris Schmidt.
Yes, done. But plenty of thoughts today on Teddy Prochazka. That is a gut punch. It's horrible. You feel for him. You want him to bounce back and keep trucking. Tough with that ACL. Turner Corcoran, the time is now for him and others. We're both big Gunnar Gatula guys. Love Coach Gatula and love covering his son at Southeast.
And the encouragement there is Gunnar spent all of his formative years learning under some of the best at Southeast. Gerald Foster is a guy that was always close with Gunner.
Mm-hmm.
So Gunner's learned from some of the best to ever make it through South.
And he's come in and performed pretty well with where he's been able to climb. I mean, at a young age.
And coming from a football family, his dad being the head coach at Southeast, he knows what it takes.
Absolutely.
Throwing that out there.
We'll check in tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Back with you for the midweek edition with Hail Varsity. And we're powered by Cornhead Lager.